Good evening, dear fans of cervical spine exercises. Idlash. There are countless neck exercises on the Russian internet, and special attention and special love are given to exercises for increasing mobility, because the main thing that starts to bother a person when neck problems arise is pain and limited mobility. Very often the neck doesn't turn as well as it should. Before anything starts to hurt, before the neck starts to ache, a person feels that it doesn't move as well anymore. There is a restriction of movement when turning, bending, or in extreme positions, and some pain appears, and this starts to bother them. And the first thing that comes to mind is that you need to stretch something to increase mobility, because you feel some stiffness in your movements. A person turns or bends and it feels like something is being stretched. And the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is to stretch it and move it so that it starts moving better. That's a very dangerous thought. And this leads a person to want to do certain exercises that are actually the most popular for increasing mobility. There are a lot of exercises where, for example, you have to turn your head to the limit and try to turn it even further. That is, you tilt your head, and when it can't tilt any further, you try to tilt it even more in different ways. For example, using your other hand, stretching the muscles, or by applying force, for instance. Joint mobility exercises is also popular among people with neck problems. Joint mobility exercises consists of numerous repetitive movements at various angles. It is designed to increase joint mobility and improve the production of synovial fluid. The idea is good, but unfortunately it leads to undesirable consequences. Here we can see situations where you shouldn't do these exercises. When shouldn't you do mobility exercises? When shouldn't you do stretching exercises? These are two situations. The first is when your head is positioned far forward. This is a sign of weakness, primarily in the muscles at the back of the neck. Well, as a rule, that's how it all starts. And the second option is when you look in the mirror and you see that one of your ears is noticeably higher than the other and one shoulder is slightly higher than the other. Well, that also indicates not only muscle asymmetry, which is acceptable to a certain extent, but it also means that if we see a situation like this, it doesn't necessarily mean that the muscles on this side are very well developed and on this side, for example, they're weak. Very often it means that they're weak on both sides. It's just that on one side they're even weaker than on the other. That is, on one side they're just a bit stronger than on the other, so maybe the load shifts to them. And that's why, as a rule, you still have to train both sides. Another sign is the thinning of the neck is over time. If you look at your old photos and your neck used to be big and broad and you couldn't button the top of your collar, and suddenly, for no apparent reason, it started shrinking to about the size of a chicken's neck. This also indicates that the muscle mass has gradually started to decrease. But on the other hand, all of this can be masked by a fatty sort of wattle, so it's also difficult to assess. Fat can grow there instead of muscle. But one sign is the thinning of the neck itself. But on the other hand, another sign is when your neck seems to disappear, as if it becomes shorter. In reality, it's just that your head shifts forward. So, what kind of evidence can we have? What are your proofs, your options? The main muscles you need for life, the ones you should start training before doing various joint exercises, are the muscles on the back of the neck, the so-called long neck extensors, because when they are weak, when they become weak, your head is held only by this group of muscles or by the upper part of the long neck extensors. They are constantly overloaded and hurt. And here, the movement will be evenly distributed across all the joints during turns and tilts. That is ideally. When we, for example, turn our head, each of our joints should perform its function. But the range of motion varies. It's more in some areas, less in others. That is, for example, between the first and second vertebrae, the range of motion will be greater here because the joint is designed that way. But all the other vertebrae also take part in the movement to a certain extent. When this happens evenly, a person doesn't feel any restriction or pain during movement. That is, the joints between the vertebrae, here they are, you see, right here. So these joints, they should take part in every movement. When bending, when turning, all these movements happen evenly. But if some of our muscles simply don't work, like this large muscle group, then during movement the load will be distributed unevenly. Some joints will move more, some will move less. So in this position of the neck, the main load that should be on the joints between the first and second vertebra shifts. So there is the odontoid process of the second vertebra, and the first one should rotate around it. If our head shifts forward from the neck like this movement will happen to a lesser extent here, and it will happen to a greater extent in the lower vertebrae. And if we start doing exercises to increase mobility, all these turns, all sorts of things, what are they called? Pendulums, pigeons. These signature exercises like diver, I don't know what they're called, water carrier, rooster, penguin, pigeon, such poetic names for these exercises. Pulling back and forth. What are we doing? We will temporarily increase mobility. It will feel like your head turns better. But how are we going to achieve this? By developing even more excessive mobility where it shouldn't be. And where it should be, it won't appear until these muscles grow. Unfortunately, muscles don't grow from rotation exercises. They only get worked locally in the specific area where the movement happens. And that's not enough for the muscles to regain their size. Over time, what does this lead to? The joints start to get overloaded, and that speeds up joint degeneration. That means it can become inflamed at first and the cartilage starts to get damaged. Somewhere the intervertebral disc can't handle it because there's no muscular support. And on top of that, you try everything that is barely holding together as it is, and you try to make it even looser. The muscles on the front of the neck also play a big role in stabilization. They tend to be weak because they're used very little in daily life, and it's advisable to periodically load and exercise them so they can maintain a certain size, because with age, very often the sternocleidomastoid muscle atrophies quite a lot, and this primarily makes turning and bending the neck more difficult. And the load from it partially shifts to the scalene muscles. That's why we often see shortening of the scalene muscles. And when they shorten, the neurovascular bundle gets compressed. As a result, in addition to pain in the neck itself, there is also pain and numbness in the arm. Problems with the shoulder, because weakness develops in the muscles around the shoulder joint. So, friends, here's what I want to say in short. Before you do stretching exercises, rotations, before you start turning your head and working on mobility, restoring mobility, you first need to build up muscle mass around your neck so that you have something to move with. And the most interesting thing is when you build up your muscle mass again, your range of motion will return on its own. You won't have to do separate exercises for rotations. And the big risk of training your neck only with mobility exercises is that it gives temporary relief, but then things get even worse. So, from these exercises, you might feel temporarily better for about 6 months, maybe a year, as if your range of motion has increased. But after some time, you'll experience even faster wear and tear of the joints that you force to move excessively. Because if your muscle atrophy hasn't gone away and the muscle hasn't recovered, then the movement will still remain uneven. So friends, what should we do now? That's the question. Even those who were eating while watching have lost their appetite after hearing this information. What should we do? Now I'll show you where to start and how to make these exercises more challenging, from easier to more difficult ones. Now let's see how I'm going to do them. You should watch carefully first and then try it yourself. Choose your own level of intensity. The first group of exercises is for those who haven't trained their neck before, for those whose neck muscles are very weak, or if you currently have any pain or discomfort in your neck. Start with this. The intensity will be minimal. You will train your muscles using only the weight of your own head. So, the first is the muscles on the back of the neck. For this, one option is to lie down on the edge of a bed or the edge of a couch. This way, your head will be positioned past the edge of the surface. But you don't let it hang down like this. That is, you just try to keep your head in this position, in a natural position, the same position your head is usually in when you're standing. To do this, you either just look down, or you can look a little down and forward at a 45-degree angle. The position of your hands doesn't really matter. You can do it this way or that way, whatever is comfortable for you. The main load here is still on the neck muscles. Try it in this position. If you hold it for about 10 to 15 seconds and already feel some fatigue in your muscles, that's it. Stop and rest for about 20 seconds as well. Let your muscles recover and then repeat it for 2 or 3 more sets. This is a light workout for the muscles at the back of the neck. The front is similar. There's one option here that's a bit riskier. It depends on whether you like to take risks. But as we know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So one of the options is to let your head hang down as well. But if you're sure your muscles are strong enough to hold the weight of your head, it won't fall down. In this position as well, hold for 10 to 20 seconds, up to 20 seconds. Then rest. Repeat for 2 or 3 sets. Here is a less risky option. When you place a pillow, you shouldn't do it like this. Just when you lift your head off the surface, hold it. Because here, your muscles are still under a bit of unnatural strain. If we stand up, our head shifts slightly forward like this. It's best for us to strengthen these muscles initially in the exact position in which they'll have to work. In a more natural position for the head. That's why you place the pillow roughly under your shoulder blades. And in this position, you lift your head like this and just hold it using only the weight of your head. If you can hold it for 20 seconds, you don't need to do more in one set. In one set, from 5 seconds, if your muscles are really weak, up to 20 seconds. If you can hold for 20 seconds, don't increase the time further, just add more sets. You can do the same thing lying on your stomach, just don't let it hang forward. Instead, use something like a roller, like this, so that your back doesn't distract you from the load on your neck. Hold this position like this. So this is the very first, the easiest load. Well, for the front muscles it might be noticeable, but for the back muscles it's kind of light. If you can handle this load, move on to the next stage where you add a little bit of resistance. The load is also almost static here, but with a small, low amplitude movement. For this, you'll need a pillow, a soft one that you can press down with some effort. And in this position, you start pressing the back of your head against the pillow. It gives in a little under this pressure, and you hold it in this position for 3 seconds. Then you relax. It pushes your head back a little. Then press again, hold for 3 seconds like this, and then relax. The tension, when performed correctly, you'll actually feel it more not in your neck itself, but in this part of the thoracic spine where the long neck extensors begin. If you feel tension right here, it means you're either pressing too hard or you should go back to the previous exercise options for now. Because if the long neck extensors can't handle the load, then this suboccipital muscle group, which is usually overworked, starts to get involved in the movement. We don't want that. And the next step, this is for those who can easily perform the previous 2 types of exercises. It's already a greater load. Here you'll need a roller. You can use one. You can also use a pillow, but it should be a bit firmer. But basically, these kinds of rollers work well, but preferably not too hard, so it doesn't press too much on your head. Place it between the wall and the back of your head, like this. And here you can adjust the load yourself. That is, in the exercise where we were pressing with the back of our head, we were intentionally creating force pressure. Here everything will happen automatically depending on how far your feet are from the wall. That is, the farther you stand from the wall, the lower you place this roller, the greater the load will be on your neck muscles, right? But start with a small load at first. So you set it up and hold the position like this. Of course, you can use a towel, right? But later on, this exercise, then you make it more difficult first by stepping further back with your feet. Here, pay attention that when your feet move back, your chin shouldn't drop too far down. You should keep about this position, and later on, you can make it more challenging. Another way to increase the load is one way is to step away from the wall with your feet and also hold this position without moving. And the second way is when you start adding a little movement. So you touch the wall with your glutes and then supporting yourself with your head, again increase the distance between your glutes, your lower back, and the wall. And this way you can start doing it with a little movement. But pay attention here. The load on the neck muscles still remains static. And in general, it's best to train the neck muscles in this way, especially if your neck muscles still don't have enough muscle mass. A similar movement, an exercise for the front neck muscles. You place the roller against the wall again. You lean your head against it. And here too, depending on how far you step away from the wall, that's how much load will be placed on these front muscles. You can feel it with your hands. If they're already tense, just hold this position and stay like that. From, well, 5 to 20 seconds, hold it for 20 seconds.
That's it. Let's rest. And the next set.
Well, here too. The lower you go, the further you move your legs back, the more load there will be on your neck muscles. Here too, try to keep your head in a natural position so that your head doesn't end up like this. So even if you move your legs further back, still try to maintain a natural position. But at first, you don't need to move too far back. This position is enough. So if you feel that your muscles, even if you touch them with your hands, are tensing up, then you can already stop in this position, because during the exercises you don't immediately feel how hard it is for your muscles. Sometimes you only notice it the next day. Because if you overload your neck muscles, especially at first, not only can they start to hurt, but you might also get a headache. This usually happens when you miscalculate the load, and some of your suboccipital muscles, the short neck extensors, are overloaded as well. So to avoid this, so you don't have to take a long break between exercises or wait for everything to recover and rest, it's better not to overdo it during your first workouts. See what your neck muscles are capable of, and that way you'll be able to choose the right load, number of repetitions and sets. And how often to do it? Every other day, every day. This way you'll start to understand, well, my friends, did you try it? If you tried this exercise with me, please share your impressions in the comments. The most important thing is to choose the right amount of load. So, do you feel it? Your neck is already becoming more stable, right? It's as if your head has become lighter, even though it hasn't actually gotten lighter. All right, let's do it. Let's do these exercises. See you in the next episode.